Here are the top stories for today, September 18, 2019. Indigenous peoples' leaders reveal before the United Nations the atrocities of the CPP-NPA. Malacanang decries the release of a docufilm that one-sidedly criticizes the government's war on drugs. Manila tightens monitoring on markets and ports to prevent the entry of African swine fever. And tourists in Gigantes Island are urged to report overpricing resorts and unregulated tour operators.
Good day, I'm Rom Dulfo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. We begin with a story from Geneva. Leaders and representatives of Filipino indigenous peoples have faced the UN to ask help to stop the atrocities against them by the New People's Army. The IPs reiterate that contrary to the claims of human rights groups, the government is not the one targeting them. Benj Bondok with the story.
Some members of the indigenous peoples community, together with the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples, faced the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva, Switzerland on Monday. The group updated the UN body about the atrocities committed by the Communist Party of the Philippines, New People's Army in the country. 8 IP leaders sought help from the UN to support their cause against the communist armed movement in the Philippines, which they blamed for the killings and grabbing of their ancestral domains. The presentation was made during a side event of the 42nd session of the UNHRC, where UN officials and member state representatives were present. NCIP Chair Allen Capuyan said the government continues to support IP communities. He presented policies and programs crafted by the Philippines that seek to further protect the rights of the IP. Last July, some IP leaders went to the United Nations headquarters in New York City, appealing for the office to launch an investigation into the attacks committed by the CPP-NPA and urged them to help end the escalating violence fueled by the communist armed conflict in the country. Representatives of the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has said they are fully committed to look into the plea of the tribal leaders. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Benj Bondok.
Meanwhile, in a dialogue with the Geneva Press Club in Switzerland, the tribal leaders lament how the communist armed movement in the country thrived through the years due to continued support it gets. Some of them come from international groups. They also called on the seizing of funding to local organizations linked to the group. By Laha Lahong Shari Balinan of the Ata tribe in Paquibato, Davao City, said her father was accused as a traitor simply because he supported and helped implement state programs in the community. She adds she herself was a victim of recruitment that led her astray to attaining real education. NCIP Chair Secretary Allen Capuyan confirmed these claims, saying in the last 5 decades, the communist insurgency has resulted into the summary executions and torture of thousands of IP leaders and members. Independent groups staged a rally at the Dutch Embassy on Tuesday as they renewed calls to bring CPP founder Jose Maria Sison back home. The League of Parents of the Philippines, LPP, and Liga Independencia picketed in front of the Dutch Embassy in the Philippines on Paseo de Rojas, Makati City, urging the embassy to cooperate in bringing Sison back to the country. The protesters said Sison and the rest of the founding members of the CPP have made Utrecht, the Netherlands, their safe haven for too long. They said the insurgency has not only stunted the country's development, but corrupted young people who were deceived into joining progressive organizations. The group has lined up a series of activities aimed at calling on the youth to resist involvement in leftist activities. President Duterte on Tuesday said he wants senior inmates 70 years old and up considered for parole. The president said he will ask the Secretary of Justice or the next administration to fast-track cases of those who are ill and old. The president said due to old age or illnesses, these inmates can no longer run nor commit crime. His statement was in response to questions whether he would consider the release of elderly inmates at the New Bilibid prison amid the issue on the early release of some convicts under the Good Conduct Time Allowance or GCTA law. The president earlier set an ultimatum for some 2,000 heinous crime convicts who were released under the GCTA law to surrender. The Foreign Affairs Department on Tuesday launched the official OFW help page on Facebook to provide help for distressed overseas Filipino workers. The OFW Help Facebook page seeks to assist undocumented or irregular workers who are not members of Overseas Workers Welfare Administration and who are in need of emergency response. It aims to provide a more preferable system in receiving requests for assistance from the next of kin of OFWs and the DFA Office of the Undersecretary for Migrant Workers Affairs. A received request is referred to the concerned Foreign Service Post, which will make representations with the employer and concerned authorities of the host government to assist the said OFW in distress. Manila City is tightening its monitoring on markets and ports to prevent the entry of African swine fever. Meanwhile, Bacolod City forms a task force to protect the city from ASF. More on this from Janice Cave.
The Manila City government has intensified its monitoring operations on all markets and ports amid reports that several provinces have been affected by the African swine fever or ASF. The Veterinary Inspection Board said the city is way ahead in its campaign against the spread of ASF, particularly in its operations against the sale of hot and double-dead meat. The Manila VIB has already been monitoring public markets across the city and has successfully confiscated contraband meat since the first day of Mayor Isko Moreno's administration. In Marikina City, Mayor Marcelino Teodoro has offered a 200,000 peso reward to anyone who could give information on those who dumped the 58 pig carcasses found floating in Marikina River last week. Teodoro said the local government will file a writ of kalikasan before the Marikina Regional Trial Court. He said those who are responsible in dumping the pig carcasses will face criminal and civil charges. In Bacolod City, Mayor Evelio Leonaria has issued a directive creating the Task Force African Swine Fever to ensure the city's protection against the highly contagious animal disease. The task force will formulate the contingency plan for ASF prevention and control, conduct information campaign to stakeholders, initiate interventions such as quarantines, and conduct investigation and institute control protocols in suspected areas of the ASF. Bacolod is the capital city of Negros Occidental, the #1 backyard swine producer in the country. Meanwhile, the Davao City Chamber of Commerce and Industry Incorporated has called for stricter measures to ensure the safety of the swine industry in Mindanao. The chamber proposes that strict control measures should be implemented in all ports and airports to prevent ASF-infected pork from entering Mindanao. Davao's hog farmers also appealed for a concerted effort to protect the region's livestock industry from the threats of ASF. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Janice Cave.
Still to come, Malacanang decries the release of a docufilm that criticizes the government's war on drugs. The DOH reports a decrease in the number of dengue cases in northern Mindanao. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Ang dami natin nakikita mga Chinese, mga incheck. Ang dami nagtatanong mga kababayan natin, ano ba to mga to? Legal ba to o hindi? And I would like to assure you that both countries, especially with this memorandum of understanding that we will never tolerate illegal aliens here in the Philippines. What more of fugitives?
Initial na report namin is out of the 4 na sinumbungo sa amin na fugitive ng Chinese Embassy or Chinese Police, yung 4 na ho yun ay yun yung pinag-issuean ng mission order ni Commissioner Morente. 3 po doon ang na-aresto, yung isa at large pa. Yung 3 nakapangalan sa mission order, they will be immediately undergoing summary deportation proceedings as fugitives. Yung sa 274 na canceled passports, yan po ay binubusisi pa nag-undergo sila ng inquest proceedings sa kasalukuyan.
Allegedly, ang kumpanya na nag-employ ng mga 277 illegal aliens na to ay rehistrado ng CESA at nag-operate bilang cryptocurrency, foreign currency exchange operation. Pero dito sa Ortigas, hindi po sa CESA sa Cagayan.
Yan po ang expect natin. Marami po mga aresto mangyayari dyan sa mga illegal aliens na yan at mga fugitives in the coming days. I would like to congratulate again the BID, FHU by ID, our PNP counterpart, and of course our Chinese counterparts here.
Malacanang on Tuesday blasted as derogatory and biased a U.S. documentary film narrating the Duterte administration's campaign against the illegal drug problem in the country. In a statement, presidential spokesperson Sal Panelo said the film titled "On the President's Orders" is being used to malign him before foreign audiences. Panelo said the docufilm has been deliberately over-dramatized to entertain its audience, apart from putting the Philippines in a bad light. He said even the title of the docufilm appears to portray the president as a villain who has ordered drug-related deaths. Panelo cautioned potential viewers to be cautious in evaluating the truthfulness of the film, especially since audiences have been saturated with false and baseless narratives relative to the government's war on drugs. The docufilm will reportedly debut in New York on October 4 and in Los Angeles on October 18. The Manila City government on Tuesday inked a memorandum of agreement with PayMaya to provide citizen benefits card for the elderly, PWDs, and solo parents. Mayor Isko Moreno and officials of PayMaya signed the agreement, which mandates PayMaya to issue ID cards to beneficiaries where they would receive their monthly allowances. Beneficiaries would not have to go to Manila City Hall or other government offices. They can also use the company's other financial services once they link their ID cards to the PayMaya app. Earlier, Moreno signed Ordinance Number 8565, which grants a 500 peso monthly allowance to qualified senior citizens, PWDs, and solo parents who are residents of Manila. It will be implemented in January next year. Efforts of distribution utilities to ensure power supply for its customers are expected to further lower the country's inflation rate over the next decade. Meralco on Monday signed 5-year power supply agreements with 3 power generators that will provide a total of 500 megawatts mid-merit capacity effective December 26. 58% of these capacities will come from natural gas and 33% will be from renewable energy. RCBC Chief Economist Michael Ricafort said electricity accounts for about 7% of the consumer price index basket. He said savings from these PSAs are estimated to be about 9 billion pesos per year. These figures, in turn, are expected to slash inflation rate by up to 0.35 percentage point annually over the next decade. From now until 2021, the government's inflation rate is expected to stay within 2 to 4% target. Ricafort said increased utilization of renewable energy is a big help to the industry. This will help the country maintain sustainable economic growth and meet its international commitments on lowering carbon emissions. The provincial government of Pangasinan has lined up job fairs and the Department of Tourism's accreditation for businesses as part of its tourism celebration. The activities are in line with the theme of the United Nations World Tourism Office, Tourism for Job, a Better Future for All. The Provincial Tourism Office started on Monday the 4-day basic wellness training for 60 trainees, which was provided by TESDA. The Provincial Public Employment Services Office will hold a job fair on September 25 at the Pangasinan Training Center in Lingayen. The DOT will also hold a mobile accreditation for tourism enterprises such as hotels and restaurants in Urdaneta City on September 26, Alaminos City on September 27, and Lingayen on September 28. Meanwhile, the historical Casa Real, the former house of Spanish colonial governors, will be inaugurated on September 30 as part of the tourism celebration, which takes place until end of the month. The Health Department reports a decline in dengue cases in northern Mindanao. Meanwhile, the local government of Tubungan, Iloilo extends financial aid to former rebels. More on this and other news from the provinces from Teresa Montemayor.
The Department of Health reported a notable decline in dengue cases in northern Mindanao since August this year. The region moved down to 4th nationwide from top 3 in terms of the number of dengue cases. From January 1 to September 14, the DOH recorded a total of 21,457 dengue cases in Region 10 with 84 casualties. The decrease is attributed to the agency's public awareness campaign, especially cleanup activities and other anti-dengue measures. Meanwhile, 5 suspects were cornered in a buy-bust operation in Sitio Estaca, Barangay Lantad in Silay City, Negros Occidental on Monday. Operatives seized from the suspects 14 sachets of shabu worth 315,000 pesos. On September 11, 3 suspects yielded 12 grams of shabu worth 180,000 pesos in a buy-bust operation in Porok Mangingisda, Barangay Guin, Halaran. In Iloilo, former members of the CPP-NPA who surrendered to the Army will receive 20,000 pesos each in financial assistance from the local government of Tubungan, Iloilo. Tubungan Mayor Roquito Taksagon said the rebel returnees will also receive livelihood training from the Public Employment Service Office. The military expects more rebels to voluntarily surrender as the Army is undertaking its community support program. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Teresa Montemayor.
Up next, the Environmental Management Bureau monitors Central Visayas for the possible entry of smog from the forest fires in Indonesia. Tourists in Gigantes Island are urged to report overpricing resorts and unregulated tour operators. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Get involved in various issues of national interest.
Is the Philippine society ready for same-sex marriage? Alam niyo napaka-controversial po nitong mga tinatawag na salugpungan schools. Ano? Kamusta po ba ang K-12? When did it start? And ano po ang status ngayon ng ating program?
Heated exchange of views that offers new perspectives and social enlightenment.
Don't push your morals on us.
Don't push your morals on us!
The same way.
Don't push your morals on us! Denying same-sex marriage!
But you're also pushing your morals on us by
Referee muna ako.
pushing it.
Okay. Mainit po ang talakayan.
Join Undersecretary Joel C. Eggo as he searches for the truth behind every story on Pros and Cons, Friday nights at 11, only here on PTV.
Kaya ako hindi nagtataka kung bakit ang popularity ng presidente ayon sa pinaka-latest ng SWS at Pulse Asia ay nasa more than 80% ang trust rating at more than 85%, di ba? Yung satisfied doon sa performance si presidente sa kanyang trabaho.
Marami po mga benepisyaryo ang magsasalita at nagsasabi na wala ito dati. Ngayon lang nila ito na napapakinabangan. At partida pa lang SEC, no, yung Malasakit Center kasi si Pangulong Duterte pinirmahan din yung Universal Healthcare. So, isa pa yon sa mga Duterte legacy na sa mga susunod na buwan ay mapapakinabangan ng taong bayan.
This is really what the Filipinos deserve. Napaka-tagal na nating nagdurusa, napakatagal na nating nagsasakripisyo, samantalang yung mga bansang Indonesia, bansang Thailand, bansang Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, napag-iwan na tayo. At least ngayon makikita natin na mataas yung level ng confidence ng mga investors na mag-invest sa bansa natin, mga foreign direct investors, mataas yung ating credit rating na nasa BBB+, mataas ang kumpiyansa ng mga negosyante, mababa yung inflation, nasa 1.7%. Kita naman natin yung rice tariffication, di ba?
Opo.
JB, na nagresulta sa pagbagsak ng presyo ng bigas sa merkado.
The Environmental Management Bureau has created a task group to monitor air quality in Central Visayas. This following reports that the haze from the raging forest fire in Indonesia has reached Mindanao. EMB Region 7 received reports that smog from the Indonesian forest fire has entered the Visayan airspace. It, however, clarified that all actions are just part of precautionary measures, especially for those suffering from respiratory issues. Earlier, the EMB said only the Mindanao regional offices received a directive to monitor the high particulates present in the air. On Sunday, EMB SOC Sergeant warned that the forest fire in Indonesia could cause the spread of unhealthy smog. Intense forest fires recently raged in Sumatra and Kalimantan, causing high levels of air pollution could be blown towards the southern part of the country. In our foreign news, the U.S. military plans to address the weekend attacks on Saudi Arabia's oil facilities. U.S. Defense Secretary Mark Esper said he joined a meeting at the White House, and Pentagon leaders and other officials briefed President Donald Trump of the situation. He also said he spoke with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and Iraqi Defense Minister Najah al-Shamari over the weekend. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo rebuffed claims that Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels are responsible for the attacks, pointing the blame towards Iran. Back home, the Department of Labor and Employment said it is ready to repatriate some 50,000 Filipinos from areas affected by the bombing of oil plants in Saudi Arabia in case the condition there worsens. Labor Chief Silvestre Bello III said no reports of OFWs injured or negatively affected by the attack, and no work disruption was reported. No Filipino casualty was also reported in Saturday's drone attack. Tourists visiting the famous Gigantes Island in Carles, Iloilo are urged to report unregulated tourist operators and opportunistic resort owners. Mayor Sigfredo Betita said he had received negative feedback on tour operators and some resorts in the tourist spot. The mayor also learned that some resort and business owners in Gigantes Island set overpriced fees on services. Betita said they have already barred fixers and unaccredited tour operators in Gigantes Island and in Bancal Port. He said tourists can drop their complaints at complaints section and suggestion boxes provided by the local government units. Aside from unregulated tour operators and erring business establishments, the island also faced a problem with waste management. To address these concerns, DOT6 Director Helen Catalbas recommended a 3-month closure of the tourism site. The local government of Carles ordered this September a 1-month closure of the Tangke Saltwater Lagoon, the #1 tourist attraction in Gigantes Island. Students from different provinces in Region 8 joined on Monday a spoken poetry contest with a theme on fish conservation. The event is part of the celebration of the 56th Fish Conservation Week in Eastern Visayas. The 12 participants expressed fish conservation messages through their delivery of verses. At least 11 students also joined the Fish Conservation Poster-Making Contest on Monday. Contestants of both competitions are from Leyte, Tacloban City, Ormoc City, Northern Samar, Samar, and Eastern Samar. Here's another look at today's biggest stories.
Indigenous peoples leaders reveal before the United Nations the atrocities of the CPP-NPA. Malacanang decries the release of a docufilm that one-sidedly criticizes the government's war on drugs. Manila tightens monitoring on markets and ports to prevent the entry of African swine fever. And tourists in Gigantes Island are urged to report overpricing resorts and unregulated tour operators.
Thank you for watching another edition of the PNA Newsroom. Check out these and other stories. Check our website or follow the Philippine News Agency on Facebook and Twitter. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags on all our social media platforms and websites. And that's your daily dose of news and information that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. I'm Rom Dulfo. Good day.